This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Why don't we play together?
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode 117 of the Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod. I am joined today by, as always, an eclectic mix of co-hosts as we look to talk everything Dreamcast. First on the mic is Mike himself. Mike, hello.
Good afternoon, James. Good afternoon.
And I must say the sound quality for you today, Mike, is glorious. No creaking doors, no squeaky seats, because I always have to, have a dig at you for your surroundings. So
you do. I think it's only the second time I've actually been on a DreamPod with my new PC, so it's working well. Let's hope. I'm
pretty sure that if we ever recorded a DreamPod in like a cave somewhere, there would still be a squeaky door coming from your side of the cave, Mike, somehow.
I mean, to be fair, when we recorded live in Bristol, I was to blame for the fact we were next to a train track. So, yeah.
Also joining us today is our... Are you still the newest member of the Dreamcast Junkyard, Loz? It's Loza, as I've just said.
Oh, yeah, baby of the Dreamcast Junkyard here. For now.
Long-time listener.
Oh, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Early time caller, yeah.
Yeah.
So we have got a super packed show for you today, and given that we are now entering the summer months of the year, I thought it would be a good idea to have a little bit of a Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod summer special. So that's what episode 117 is going to be all about. Before we go any further, completely unrelated to Dreamcast, but do any of you guys, do you know the reference of 117, the video game reference of 117?
117. Well, I feel like I should.
Yeah, I think you might, Mike, maybe.
Can you drop any hints?
Xbox.
Nope.
It was Master Chief Soldier number 117. There you go. So yes, we've got a lot to get through today. So before we start, though, we always start with a question. And since Andrew and Lewis have been taking over the show, we used to always ask what people are playing, but they've started to mix it up a bit. So I felt like I had to do the same today. This is probably a question most of us have answered at some point, but rather than what we're playing right now, I was just interested to hear from you guys. What was the first game that you ever played on Dreamcast? Doesn't have to be the game that you owned, but what was the first time you ever held a Dreamcast controller? What was the game that you played for that first time? Loz, I'll come to you first.
Trying to wrap my brain back to late 90s. I think the first one was actually Ready to Rumble in a demo kiosk.
Yep.
At Coventry PC World.
How about that?
Hey. Yeah. I can't remember what we were there for. I think my dad might have been trying to get his computer repaired or something. And as you do, I was just left to roam around the store. I'm pretty sure it was Ready to Rumble.
Yeah, that was on the Dream On demo that Dream On, was it 0 or 1? I can't remember. I think it was 0, which they put in the box with the launch Dreamcast. So I remember playing that demo a lot in the local cinema here, playing Ready to Rumble. Really good game. Mike, how about you?
It's a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure the first game I would have played would have been Sonic Adventure. I think
Mike,
it was.
I was expecting some obscure, like July or something from you.
No, I'm not hardcore enough to have bought a Japanese Dreamcast. No, I Sonic Adventure. I mean, I wasn't really into console gaming at the time, so I bought a Dreamcast because of the demo of Sonic Adventure and the video of that first level. So I'm pretty sure I would have played that first.
Well, mine, I didn't import either, but my first Dreamcast experience in the flesh was on a Japanese import console. I was obsessed with Dreamcast before it came out. It was one of the first consoles I'd kind of, watched carefully as it was released in Japan, and was adamant that I was going to buy one on launch in the UK. And I remember this must have been probably the summer, actually, of '99, and my local game store, one of the staff members had bought a Dreamcast, and they had it on, they were sort of demoing it on the big screen at the back. And I sort of stood there and watched for a while, and then he booted up Power Stone, and that was the first game I ever played on Dreamcast, and it blew my mind at the time. Nothing else quite like it. I'd never played anything like it anyway, but from a visuals perspective, I was pretty assured that my Dreamcast pre-order was in safe hands, and Sega was going to rule the world again after that. Sadly, as we know, history would be cruel, and it didn't turn out that way.
What an introduction, though. What an introduction, James.
It was a very good introduction to Dreamcast, yeah, for sure.
Can you remember, just out of curiosity, can you remember the name of the shop? Was it an indie? Was it Game Station?
Oh, it was Game. It was Game. We had in Cardiff, there was a big, huge Game, and they always had like a massive TV at the back. Like, I'm talking, a humongous thing. And this was obviously back in the late 90s when big TVs were not commonly seen. But they always used to have this TV because if customers wanted to try a game out or whatever, they used to put it on this big, huge screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember it well. It was actually a game store. Sadly, no longer there, but yeah, my first Dreamcast experience, and certainly not my last. All right, since we've last been on air, there's been quite a bit of Dreamcast news that we want to run through. Seeing as we've got Loz on the pod today, he did a fantastic job earlier on in the month writing all of this news up into an article on the blog. So rather than steal his thunder, I'm going to hand you over to Loz, who will go through the latest Dreamcast news for us.
That's very generous of you, James. I'm not going to try and put a newscaster voice on.
I think you should now.
Queen's English. Yeah. So I'll just proceed to read every single word from this article, and we'll call it a day. Yeah. So as always, there's kind of a whirlwind of things happening with the Dreamcast, and a lot of it I don't fully understand. The ins and outs of the technicalities of things, but I just really appreciate the outputs a lot of the time. So one of the pieces of news that really stood out to me is there's this fellow called Tapam N who has come up with a new method for patching Dreamcast games to make them work in VGA, and it's been a real bugbear of mine for a while now. I remember ages ago when I first got my Dreamcast, and I bought a VGA box, probably not for much at the time, but when you're a teenager, it's every penny counts. And I was so disappointed when I chucked some games in it and you couldn't play them in VGA. I just took it as read that you'd be able to play everything through it. So this new method that Tapam N has come up with basically gives us hope that all these games like Bang.io, Hydro Thunder and the like are actually going to be able to be played through VGA, which is, for me, is really exciting because I don't actually have any of the video output set up. I've got that same VGA box sat behind me.
Hydro Thunder's the big one as well, isn't it? I think most people, because Hydro Thunder teases you to the point where you can load it up, but it doesn't actually want to play ball with you when it starts moving. But yeah, that side that'll probably be the one that a lot of people will gravitate to, I think.
Yeah, it's particularly cruel. I mean, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings here, but there is some dross in there as well. There's I think like the ECW games and things like that. But no, that's really promising. Aside from that, there's some other homebrew scene development. Ian Michaels followed up his Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles collection, although I could have sworn that was called Hero Turtles. Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles when I was a kid.
The word ninja was too violent for the UK scene. So yeah, it was Hero Turtles. I'm surprised you didn't know that, Loz. It was changed for the UK. I think it was UK market only. It might have been Europe.
Yeah.
Oh, it's censorship.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad they did that, because otherwise I'd probably be a ninja today. So Ian Michaels followed that up with a Fantasy Star collection that's very much in the same vein. A collection of ROMs with some nice menus, video, soundtrack, and the like, which is very cool. And then I suppose the other big news is our very own Andrew Dickinson's Dreamcast Year 2 book was released. I was really happy to hear the third on my doormat the other day, and it looks great. Have either of you got your copies yet?
Yep, absolutely.
Not yet.
Oh, Mike, you must be on the fourth tier of popularity or something.
I think it is. Andrew doesn't like me. I think he's just not sent it to me. But yeah.
Yeah, I purposely held off reading the early PDF samples that us contributors received as the book was coming together, because I wanted to enjoy it in its physical form, and yeah, I think it's every bit as good as I'd hoped. The first book was excellent, and this just improves on it in every way, basically. The writing that everybody has done for the retrospectives are all fantastic. And yeah, it's just a really good celebration of the Dreamcast, and I know Andrew and the team have worked tirelessly to get this into people's hands. So it's great to be able to report that people are finally taking delivery of it as we speak on this pod today. Yeah,
and what's great as well is I loved seeing the Dreamcast Junkyard logo on the back there. I mean, I think it's 99% obviously Andrew's work, but he's very kind to place that there.
Yeah. And I will say, obviously, if anyone listening has got a copy, make sure you check out the Spirit of Speed 1927 retrospective. For those who don't know the story behind that, and you might be asking yourself, why has Spirit of Speed got a 10-page spread to cover the game, where things like Phantasy Star Online have only got 6 or something. Andrew and I had a little wager before the Kickstarter where I said to Andrew, if it gets over so much stretch goal, he had to give me 10 pages on Spirit of Speed. And fair play to him, I didn't think he would actually do it, but the crazy man gave me 10 pages to wax lyrical about Spirit of Speed. So yeah, much credit to him. Mike, speaking of books, how is the A to Z coming along?
Yeah, it's going good. We have a small team of people correcting my mistakes. Laurence is one of those. Yeah, we have it's going well. It's hopefully August time should be about right.
Fantastic. And have you even thought about how people can give you money for this book yet?
Not really, no. So if anyone has any ideas or suggestions, please feel free to point them out to me.
Maybe get like a market store, like proper late 90s styly, and just sort of have a load of boxes in your boot and just sell them off for a crisp £20 note or something.
I think so. I think it's...
You just need someone on the corner looking out for the roses as well if you're doing that.
Brilliant. Well, one thing we love is a nice Dreamcast book. So yeah, I'm sure these two won't be the last two, and always great to see them as they come in.
I think I really should also mention Harlequest.
Yep.
Because that game has its Kickstarter's closed. They managed to reach their funding goal and their first stretch goal as well. So just shout out to Ross. I think that project is going to be, it seems to be the case that he's managing it really well.
Yeah. And
I have absolutely no worries about it. He seems incredibly competent. So really looking forward to playing the demo, because he's releasing demos as and when. That's really promising.
Yeah, game looks great. And obviously Wave involved as well, so you know that the production quality is going to be top notch with that one as well.
That's it. Yeah, it's kind of a really good combo of people. And Androdunos too, I'll just mention as well, that was finally came out. That's been on the cards for quite a while from Pixel Heart. And I got a copy here, and I'm actually really pleasantly surprised thus far. Because I think it's fair to say some of Pixel Heart's previous releases have been a bit disappointing for some. A bit rough around the edges. Seemed like they might have been rushed a little, but from what I've played so far, this one is a banger. So recommend looking it up. Have you played this at all, Mike?
Yeah, so I've got the obviously the version, Dreamcast version, but I've also got the Switch version as well. And I have to say the Dreamcast version's pretty close to what the Switch is doing, so it's very impressive.
Good stuff. So whilst we're talking news, then some unrelated to Dreamcast news that we are going to make Dreamcast related news is that the E3 event, a physical event, has been cancelled, which, to be honest, is come at absolutely no surprise. I'm not sure there's a place in modern gaming and the way that social media is and everything else for E3 to still take place, given the cost involved for the publishers and the developers. So I'm not surprised that E3 has been cancelled, but I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to just sort of reflect a bit back on the Dreamcast's appearances at E3 and just sort of reflect a little bit on what was shown. Interestingly, and I did a bit of research on this because I went back to 1998, and interestingly, the Dreamcast was not even shown at E3 in 1998. Instead, Sega focusing on their big Saturn hitters at the time that were going to get them through the remainder of the year until Dreamcast launched. Things like Burning Rangers, House of the Dead, Panzer Dragoon, etc. So that's a pretty good lineup, straight off the bat. But that made me think, can you imagine if E3 was still alive now? Can you imagine a manufacturer not featuring a console of the E3 when the console's going to launch that fall? It just seems crazy to me that they didn't even show it, publicly at that event. So that was a pretty startling discovery. But then, obviously, as you move into E3 1999, this was when obviously Dreamcast had been around already for 6 months in Japan, and things started to really take shape for the Dreamcast. Do you guys have any memories from E3 at the time, or reading any of the coverage? Obviously, the coverage of E3 was restricted to the sort of the big specials that the magazines had back then. But yeah, what's your memories of it from the time, if any?
Mike, do you want to kick this off?
I can do. I mean, it's very, very short. I don't really remember E3, to ask you. I don't really think E3 was on my radar at all at the time. It just wasn't something which I particularly took notice of. I suppose I was more into PC gaming at the time, and I think my sort of exposure to games was more at that point on the internet, forums and things like that. So I think maybe I just didn't really pick up on it at all. But no, I've got very little memory at the time from E3 to Dreamcast. I mean, the only E3 memory I have, which is sort of a connection to me, is from 2015, which is Shenmue 3. It's the only real sort of connection I have with E3 at all. I used to watch it. I watched it for well over a decade, but I don't remember it being as big a thing in my social circle at the time. So maybe I'm just odd.
No, I think it was definitely less memorable back then because these things weren't broadcast. I mean, it was a trade event. Let's not forget back then, and it wasn't meant to be, there wasn't meant to be these grand stages that you see with Microsoft and Sony and what have you these days when, the things happen on the stage, and that's generally what E3 gets remembered for nowadays. And as I said, you were pretty much relying on the magazine coverage of what was shown at E3, and yeah, there's not much that we actually remember from that perspective.
Yeah, I get the feeling that it very much developed into more of a consumer consumer focused show later on.
Definitely.
Whereas its roots were kind of very much in trade, and if you see some of those early presentations, it's like you go into a work conference, you've got some badly put together slides and some dodgy data presentation. But I'm going to really disappoint you here, James, because Mike said he doesn't remember anything. I don't remember anything either, but I think it's partly because I would have been about 9 or 10. I probably had my head stuck in a copy of the Beano and my finger stuck up my nose. But I do remember E3 coming into my consciousness a little bit later on, and mainly, reading up about it within magazines. And what I distinctly remember is all the kind of rumors and the rumor mill that surrounds E3, and because it's all you're kind of getting fed this stuff secondhand, and I wasn't there for it at the time, but a few years later on, kind of getting obsessed with the Dreamcast and seeing all the stuff that was being reported from E3 then, like about the I think the Dreamcast DVD player was something that was maybe was floated at E3 by Sega, and the zip drive.
The MP3 player.
Exactly, yeah. And in my current state of mind, I being very cynical, I kind of wonder as to whether those were pretty desperate plays, because I don't know how far, like the DVD player, that was never going to happen. It seemed to me like it was maybe a bit of a reaction from Sega, which was, oh shit, we're struggling here. What can we put out there?
The DVD player was shown at E3 2000 along with the broadband adapter and the Dreamcast mouse as well. So yeah, it was a case of what can we do to to stand out more than what Sony are going to be doing in a couple of months' time?
Yeah. But I would have thought that. So it didn't. You say, James, that it didn't make an appearance to the Dreamcast at '98, but I would have thought that when it landed in '99.
Yeah. So 99, there was. I mean, just looking at the list of games that were shown at E3 '99, and there are dozens. I mean, it's pretty much your Dreamcast game list in general, everything from Sonic Adventure, Shenmue, Sega Rally, Sega Bass Fishing, all of the first party Sega stuff, all the third party stuff as well. Interestingly, Take the Bullet was demoed at E3 in '99, which, as we know, never actually came out, as well as Max Payne, another game that ultimately didn't end up featuring on Dreamcast. But yeah, loads and loads of stuff. And then the same in 2000. I mean, 2000, obviously, as you can imagine, even more in the way of Dreamcast games shown in 2000. And that was actually the MP3 player as well, was shown in 2000. And I remember thinking that thing looked so cool. I was 100% in for the Dreamcast MP3 player. But then I was 100% in with the zip drive as well. I had no real reason why. But lots of things shown again in 2000. Virtual Pool actually was shown, which ultimately, as far as I'm aware, never got a release. The Austin Powers Mojo Rally game, which I know recently a few screenshots came out from, or at least some character models came out from recently as well. So yeah, lots going on. And then the only other one to call out, I guess, is 2001, which was a strange one for Sega, because obviously they were in the process at this point of they'd already announced that Dreamcast had been discontinued, and they also still had lots of games coming out. So this was Sega's E3 at 2001 covered, a number of Dreamcast games, a number of Game Boy Advance games, a number of PlayStation 2 games, a number of GameCube games, and a number of Xbox games, as well as Virtua Fighter 4 on arcade, just to throw in for good measure. So Sega in 2001 really taking the third-party developer by the horns and seeing what they could release on what, I think, which was still a little bit too soon for most of us in the summer of 2001. I regrettably say.
Yeah, they pivoted quite hard to that quite fast. I mean, I suppose they needed to.
Yeah.
They were looking into the abyss and needed to survive. But it is interesting as to how, because the kind of sister or sibling kind of event over in Japan, I think, is Tokyo Game Show.
Yeah.
And I think that the Sega were actually a little bit slower to disengage over there. I think even at 2002 Tokyo Game Show, they might have still had Dreamcast kicking about with a couple of new releases.
They probably had Saturn still kicking about over there in 2002, I'd imagine, because that went on for a long time after it was dead in the water, really, as far as I'm aware, from a Sega in Japan thing. So yeah, interesting times. As I said, with E3 going, the other thing to mention, of course, when talking Dreamcast and E3 is that infamous photograph of the decorations up in the E3 hall, and it had the PlayStation logo, the Microsoft Xbox logo, and the Dreamcast logo next to it, and it was like the three powerhouses, one by one by one. I presume that was from 2000. And it's just, again, looking back at it, it's sad to see the fate of Sega and the Dreamcast from that point. And I often kind of relate it to the seeing the Atari banner up in Blade Runner, sort of trying to predict the future. And Sega, as we know it now, is very different to what it was back then. Before we move on, then, I mean, obviously, you guys said you're more into, or you've been more into E3 in more recent years. What do you think about the cancellation? Are you disappointed? Do you think it's still got a place, or do you think we won't see it again now after this year?
I think we probably will see something in the next couple of years come back. Not .E3, but I think something similar to it. I think the disappointment of last night's PlayStation Showcase, or last night from when we recorded this, I think maybe the industry and the main players will realise that a big event like this could actually be useful. But yeah, I mean, from a personal perspective, I don't really have any interest. I've got to be honest with you. Getting old, less time to play games as it is. But I think I just want to mention again, I mentioned it once already, but it's worth mentioning again, is the Shenmue 3 announcement for me will mean E3 will always be have a good memory. I think I watched it. Is it GT Live or Game Trailers Live?
Yeah.
When they did theirs, I actually was watching it on that. So it was a pretty impressive response from the game community at the time. And it was I think it's been seared into many, many people's memories. So that was a really good memory for me for E3. The rest of it, I mean, I don't really remember much about it, to be honest with you.
So sorry, Mike, to go off tangent here, but I'm glad that we've got some background noise from you now. It wouldn't be the same without.
We've got dogs barking to add to the creaks and the squeaks.
I love it. They were very much disagreeing with your take there on E3. I don't know. I think a lot of the time, once something stops, trying to get the budget back for it, I can just imagine being kind of, internal. I don't know what it's like to work for Sony or Nintendo or someone, but in my line of work, once you lose the budget for something, it's like it's never coming back.
On that, I just don't think they get the return anymore that they would get, because I mean, ultimately, they run their own events, they can completely control their own narrative. And ultimately, they're not having to share a stage with their closest competitors. So as much as it, from a consumer perspective, is probably not as balanced anymore, it's the information is just so much more easily available now. It just feels like a very outdated concept that I think was going for as long as it was because of tradition more than anything else. And like many things, COVID has kind of put the spotlight on a lot of outdated traditions for things like that now, and it makes it a much more difficult justification, I guess, to justify the investment again.
Yeah, it's sad that, I suppose it's sad if you were one of the people who got to go, you had your hotel and your flight booked by your company, and you could, go for, I don't know, I can only imagine that, the Sony folks went out for beers with Nintendo and whatever else, who knows? And you get a load of free tat. That's what's good about conferences, all the tat.
Yeah. Do you know? I was actually listening to another podcast, and I forget what it is now about the journalist side of E3, and they were saying that nowadays E3 as a journalist just wasn't enjoyable anyway, because whilst as before, exactly like you say, you'd have all the shows in the day, you'd go away, have a nice meal, have a nice evening, mingling, networking, everything else. With the fact that now everybody's got to be first to report a story, the general kind of schedule for someone covering E3 was spend all day in conferences and then spend all night, writing, editing, uploading content or whatever. Otherwise, someone else is going to do it, and then you can't wait until the end of the week and then have a month to write everything up ready for the next magazine. It's a very different world now. All right, so that's E3. It's sad to see it go, but we are in different times, so it's just you'll have to get your Dreamcast news from us now, guys. Instead, I'm afraid there's no waiting for Dreamcast magazines to come out and give you the latest Dreamcast news. So, keeping things moving then, and keeping with our summer theme, I thought it would be a good opportunity for us just to talk about, Dreamcast gaming in the summer. So this can be either a game that reminds you of summer or is set in summer or something like that, or just your own Dreamcast memories from playing, on the Dreamcast in the summer. We were all pretty young at that point, so we had probably at least a few months of no school, college, university work commitments, so it was a good time to catch up on the backlog. Loz, I'll come to you first on this one. What about you? What are your summer memories of Dreamcast?
It's Virtua Tennis for me. That's what pops into my head immediately, and I think it's kind of half obvious why, the kind of sun-baked grass courts playing tennis, kind of Wimbledon vibes. But I mean, I know sweet fuck all about the actual sport. To be honest with you, I think it's mainly a summer sport. So, they don't like playing out in the rain, so it's got to be mainly a summer sport. I just think of Wimbledon and, sticking it on the telly. I used to be off for exams or something in Wimbledon. It'd always be on. And Virtua Tennis, it was the game that came with my Dreamcast. So I bought it secondhand from Game Station. I don't know if they forgot about it or if the guy behind the counter was just being very generous that day. But when I got it home and popped it open, they'd left the Virtua Tennis disc in there. So that was my very first game.
Bonus.
And yeah, great bonus as well. What a game. And I just remember playing it multiplayer quite a lot with mates. You'd be out in the day, whatever, skateboarding, hanging around on street corners, whatever you do when you're that age. And then we'd play that in the evening when it was, when it was kind of dusk. And just a very summery game for me.
Yeah, really good choice. And obviously, tennis being quite a summer sport with Wimbledon and everything else, I think it adds to it quite nicely. I've got good memories of multiplayer Virtua Tennis and Virtua Tennis 2 as well. I'm the same as you. I've got no interest in the sport whatsoever. There's just something about tennis games that just translates really well to a controller, isn't it? It's just, you can have no interest in the sport at all, but actually playing a tennis game, I think, is something we've all done with enjoyment at some point in our video game careers, should we say?
Yeah, super easy to pick up. Just what a game! I think it gets overlooked a lot of the time on the Dreamcast. So if you never played Virtua Tennis, you should definitely give it a bash.
Yeah, excuse the pun, but give it a bash. But also try Virtua Tennis 2, which is a superior game, and I'm probably going to be thrown under the bus by all the comments about that. But I would say, Virtua Tennis 2, if you've not played Virtua Tennis, is the one to go for.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mike, any Virtua Tennis stories before you give us your game?
Don't know if it's had any stories in my life to do with Virtua Tennis. I once beat someone at a game and event of Virtua Tennis. that's pretty much it. I mean, that's the worst story in the world.
Yeah, it's a
there you
great
go.
story. Yeah, great story.
I liked it.
Well, I mean, I can talk about beating people at game events quite a lot, because I can talk about my experience of beating Tom at Sega Rally arcade machine, which is one of my best moments. Sorry, Tom. Yeah, so I love Virtua Tennis. It's one of the great games, isn't it? One of the great Dreamcast games. I love I think it's in Virtua Tennis 1 and 2, but the way the clouds go over and sort of the sunshine sort of changes on the court is amazing. Yeah, really good summary.
What about your summary game then, Mike?
I mean, I'm going to be really boring, and I'm going to pick the level, which in my opinion is the most summary level of all time. Nice. Which is the first level of Sonic Adventure. It is bright, colourful, everything. I mean, I thought about this the other day. I was doing some editing on the guide and stuff, and I was reading some comments, and I was trying to think of any level of a game which sells itself quite as well as Sonic Adventure did. I think that first level was such a amazing visual level. Every part of it is just summary. It's that blue sky Sega aesthetic, which we've talked about so many times, but that pretty much sums it up. It's just a really bright, vibrant, fun level.
Yeah, it's I mean, Dreamcast is obviously quite synonymous with with blue skies as far as Sega games are concerned from that era. But I would agree, Sonic Adventure, that first level, obviously the level that appeared in the demo discs as well, that appeared in the pods everywhere, was definitely quite a synonymous image with the Dreamcast. And yeah, it had that late 90s mandatory lens flare effect as well. Yeah. As you ran on the beach towards the was it a killer whale or killer whale, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's an orca, yeah.
Yeah, very, very good game, and very good introduction to Dreamcast life as well. Right, for my choice then, I have gone with the appropriately named Summer Special level of the Toy Commander demo. Which I remember playing, and I think it's worth a mention because when you talk about Toy Commander and the special levels that were created for the Dream On demo discs here in the UK and presumably in the States as well, everyone remembers the Christmas one where you take control of a robotic Father Christmas who flies around on a jetpack and delivers what ends up being a Dreamcast underneath the Christmas tree. A lot of people don't tend to remember the summer special that came out later in the following year with regards to the Toy Commander. I think they put them both on the disc at the time, the Christmas level and the summer level. But basically, for those who haven't played it, and I would recommend you go and give it a go, it is a similarly exclusive level that was created for the disc, and ultimately you've got to just clean a beach up of rubbish, and basically you've got a Barbie and Ken look-alike dolls on there on the actual game itself to avoid any sort of copyright infringements from, is it Hasbro that own Barbie? I don't know. And yeah, just obviously playing it in the summer and something to get yourself in the mood for. But I'm going to select one other game because it is because I'm allowed, because I'm the host, so I can make the rules. And the other one for me is Choo Choo Rocket. And to me, this is a summer game because I registered on Dream Arena for a free copy, and I remember I was about to go on what ultimately was my last family holiday, because I started going on holiday on my own after that, but going on holiday for 2 weeks somewhere with my parents, and I received a postcard in the shape of the rocket from Choo Choo Rocket, saying that your copy of Choo Choo Rocket is on the way, should be here in a couple of days. And I was just thinking, no, I'm about to go on holiday. And so all holiday for an entire 2 weeks, all I could think about was, I want to go home to play Choo Choo Rocket. I want to go home to play Choo Choo Rocket. And I think, luckily Choo Choo Rocket was waiting for me when I got home. Otherwise, I think I would have, I don't know what I would have done. But yeah, getting Choo Choo Rocket then, and I think spending the rest of my summer holidays playing Choo Choo Rocket online was definitely a core Dreamcast memory for me. and yeah, just so happened to take place over the summertime.
Racking up that big phone bill, eh?
Yeah, well, not so much a phone bill because calls for us were free after 6 p.m. But I definitely got a lot of aggro from my parents for having the phone line clogged up, for multiple hours in the day. That was a revelation to my parents. They didn't realize would come with online gaming.
Hey, it's Brian. I'm just going to chime in here to add to the summer of Sega games, I guess. I don't know what we're calling this. I'm getting over a cold, so bear with me here. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention Virtua Tennis, a game which very thoroughly defined my summer of 2000. I originally played it in the official Dreamcast magazine demo disc that came out around that time. And holy crap, I was hooked. Like, the demo itself was pretty limited. It was just basically the arcade mode on easy with the 4 matches that you could play. And you got 2 characters or 2 players to choose between, Kafelnikov and Jim Courier. Now, I don't know if this was an artistic choice on Hitmaker's part, or if, I don't know if there were technical limitations, or if Jim Courier was just that ugly in real life. But holy crap, these character models were hideous. But nevertheless, I played through that demo so much. But yeah, I think that demo and subsequently the full game itself pretty much defined my summer of 2000, alongside a lot of other Dreamcast games. I mean, I was still playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Classic. I think I was still playing Dead or Alive 2, which had come out in the spring, but I didn't get it till the summer. Space Channel 5 came out around then, so that was a pretty huge one for me. Later on, Samba de Amigo would also come to define not that summer, but many summers to come, including right up to now. That's a game that my friends and I, especially in the summer, will be day drinking or going to festivals throughout the afternoon, and then come back to my place and break out the maracas and the Dreamcast for what's become kind of a tradition for us to kind of cap off our warm summer evenings that way sometimes, with the help of a little monkey and a lot of tequila. And that also reminds me, there was also a bit of news regarding the sequel, Samba de Amigo Party Central, which is coming out on the Switch. Sega, I think, dropped a few more details this week, including the release date, which is August 29th. So definitely looking forward to that. The track listing is actually pretty expansive. A lot of it's going to be defined by more modern artists like Ariana Grande, Nicki Minaj, etc. I believe it also includes City Escape from Sonic Adventure 2. Returning tracks appear to include Ricky Martin's Cup of Life, as well as covers of La Bamba and Macarena. They also have a digital deluxe edition that's going to have a variety of other Sega songs, particularly Open Your Heart from Sonic Adventure, some stuff from Space Channel 5, Rhythm Thief, and Yakuza, I believe. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I feel like the Switch, I don't know, what do you call them, the Joy-Cons, they'd probably double okay as maracas. I'm sure somebody somewhere is going to come out with a actual maraca attachment. I would be shocked if you can't go on to Etsy and someone just like built one that you can buy. But maybe there'll be an officially sanctioned one. I don't think they've announced that at this point. But you already look like an idiot playing the game anyway, so whether you have maracas or Joy-Cons, you're still just shaking shit and looking like a fool. So I'm looking forward to continuing that tradition on August 29th. Yeah, so Party Central will be $40 USD, as well as, I think, £35 in the UK. And then the digital deluxe editions are $50 and £45, respectively. In addition to that, it does look like there's a physical copy of the standard edition, so you can look out for that. I am also confirming that there are indeed a shit ton of third-party maraca attachments for Joy-Cons already flooding the market, so you don't have to worry about those. They look pretty cheap, both in terms of price and probably in quality too. But yeah, hell yeah.
All right. Moving on then, we've talked about our memories of summer. I thought it would also be good just to look at the sorts of Dreamcast games that came out during summer months. This isn't the case anymore, but again, historically, the summer months tended to be fairly sparse when it came to sort of AAA or whatever we called them back then, big game releases, because obviously most companies were gearing up for the sort of the winter, the fall releases that were coming out in November time, December time, etc. So when I first put the notes together for this episode, I thought, oh yeah, that'll be good because there's going to be loads of like sort of underrated or bad Dreamcast games that came out as sort of filler during that time, because that's normally what used to happen, is that if you were working on a game and you maybe knew that it wasn't going to compete with the likes of Shenmue and Sonic Adventure or whatever else was coming out, it was put it out in the summer because you've got less competition and people want to buy games, so they're going to buy your games. What did surprise me, however, is when I went through the games that were released during this time, there was actually quite a lot of very well received games that got released. So I thought we'd run through these and just maybe talk about our thoughts and memories of some of these titles as we go through. My disclaimer here is anyone who's tried to sort of track down release dates for Dreamcast games in an easy way, you will know how difficult it is to actually get a consensus on release dates. So what I basically did, I cheated a little bit. I looked through the summer editions, so the June and July issues of Dreamcast magazine from 2000 and 2001, and just looked at the games they reviewed because my assumption was they were coming out soon, and so therefore would be summer games. And I started off with 3 absolute crackers. So the first 3, Samba de Amigo, which got a review score of 95%, Resident Evil Code Veronica, which got a review score of 94%, and Choo Choo Rocket scoring 90%. So much for summer filler games, chaps. Any comments from anyone on those 3?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get hunted down here. Samba de Amigo, it's a bit, the novelty wears off quite quickly for me.
That's.
I mean, yeah. I'm sorry, Mike. I'm sorry.
I think Andrew would be against you for saying that as well.
Well, Andrew, maybe we have to have a head-to-head and have it out over Samba de Amigo. It's a great game, great design, but I just find that the novelty of using the maracas wears off a bit quick.
Maybe because it was released in the summer, it got a higher score because of the fact it's a very summery game. Maybe that's what we can put it down to.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. Resident Evil Code Veronica, obviously, huge game on Dreamcast. I think no one would begrudge giving that a high score, unless Loz, you want to dispute that one as well?
another game that's been overhyped. No, that one thoroughly deserves its score. Yeah.
I mean, interesting to see that they actually scored Somebody May Go higher.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
No, would I?
Do you know, it does always surprise me about Resident Evil games, that they, that you obviously think Resident Evil, you think classic Halloween type game, release in sort of, September, October, get people in the spooky mood. And most Resident Evil games tend to come out in like March, April, May time, which is bizarre to me. This one actually in the UK at least came out in May. So it was, strange timing for that one. If for no other reason that you don't want the sun glaring on your screen when you're trying to play a scary game and not be able to see all of the what's coming around the corner. Next 3 then, Silver, which got 84%, Tony Hawk's Pro Skating, 94%, and Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, 74%. Any disagreements there? Are we okay with that scoring? I know Lewis would be happy with Tony Hawk getting 94.
I think Episode 1 Racer's underrated there.
Yeah, you think that? So I've not played the Dreamcast port, but I have read that it's one of the better ports of that game. But yeah, I think obviously trying to cash in on Star Wars Fever in the summer, without a doubt. Next up then is Roadsters.
Amazing game.
Probably scored too high there with 48%.
Definitely.
Gauntlet Legends. I think that's an underrated Dreamcast game personally. 87%, really good fun. And South Park Rally at 63%. That was a disappointing title, as were most South Park games of this era. I still don't really know how they managed to mess a rally game based on South Park up as much as they did, to be honest.
It should have been so easy to smash that. I think that was quite a few of these now that we're getting into a multi-format, aren't they? And so you kind of run into the issue of whether the Dreamcast game is actually a Dreamcast game or if it's just a kind of shoddy PS1 port. And I think South Park Rally might have been the latter.
Yeah. Then we've got NHL 2K, which is 85%, Buster Move 4, 84%, and what I think is criminally underscored is Super Runabout at 48%.
Yeah.
I owned Super Runabout back in the day. I think I had it for Christmas that year, and I really, really like this game. I don't really see why it's scored so poorly. Mike, you seem to agree with me there. I
think that someone has gone into it thinking it's Crazy Taxi, and then when they realise it's not Crazy Taxi, they scored it lowly for no reason. It's got problems. I mean, is that the PAL release or is that the original Japanese release?
No, these are all PAL reviews anyway.
Cool. Because obviously the re-release in Japan was slightly better, and I'm trying to remember whether that's actually the version we got or not. I think it was. It's not the best game in the world, but yeah, it's a decent game.
No, it's just a nice arcadey, lose a few hours to just running into things and collecting hot dogs and what have you.
I mean, it's definitely worth to be a few more percentages higher than Roadsters, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the cars actually handle like cars for a start, which is a miracle. But yeah, that's criminally underrated for me. Good game, lots to do, lots to unlock. Not sure why it was so low. Next up, then we've got Crazy Taxi 2. Alone in the Dark and Evil Dead. Crazy Taxi 2 with 92%, Alone in the Dark 68%, and Evil Dead 42%. Nothing really spectacular there. Crazy Taxi 2, obviously we know how good that is. Alone in the Dark, probably a missed opportunity, and Evil Dead, I think the less said about that game, the better. That was pretty bad from memory. The next Tetris then is next up with 57%, and I'm surprised that's so low, but of course the PAL release did not have online gameplay. Yeah. So I wonder if that was a contributing factor to why it didn't receive so poorly. I'd also say when I look back at reviews from this sort of era, when obviously the whole world was going towards, the generation before was all about the step up to 3D, and then this generation was just about sort of refining 3D visuals as much as possible. I do think that, 2D games in general were looked upon quite critically at that time, in the sense of that's old news and we don't care about that anymore. We want to talk about 3D stuff. Yeah. I mean, the next Tetris is Tetris, right? I mean, it's hard to see why that would get any sort of negativity in that regard.
Yeah, I suppose it may be the case. I think that's largely due to, as you say, James, the kind of the zeitgeist of the time, which was very much against anything that wasn't pushing boundaries in terms of graphics and game development, and also the lack of the online component. Because really, it's similar to, like, say, Choo Choo Rocket, or there's quite a few of the online games where they are very simple, but the reason that they're impressive, or would have been impressive at the time, was the online component. Yeah. So I suppose without it, it's just Tetris. And so, you may as well just play it on your Game Boy or something.
That's your review there. May as well play it on your Game Boy. Then we've got Ill Bleed at 87%. Massively, I wouldn't say underrated, but a game that I think people don't talk about enough on Dreamcast. Really, really good game. And Sonic Adventure 2 at 93%, which was obviously one of the last big sort of first-party games from Sega on the Dreamcast. And then we finish up with Soldier of Fortune, 86%. Out Trigger, 92%. Gran Turismo 2 was reviewed because the Bleemcast disc had just been released for that. how that got through to a commercial release is still beyond me to this day. Interestingly, they only gave that 68%, which I wonder if that's actually reviewing the emulation itself, or more just trying to be more of a fanboy over the fact it was a Sony game, not a Sega game.
If I remember the review for that one, it was pretty much just them saying this is a Sony game, this is not as good as MSR.
Yeah. I still can't believe those Dreamcast discs actually made it to production when you think back at it now. I mean, can you imagine like a PlayStation 5 emulator or PlayStation 4 emulator disc being released for Xbox One, Xbox Series X? It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And then finally, Dragon Riders, which was a game I wasn't particularly familiar with. So 67% that one scored. So yeah, probably the sort of filler game that I was expecting to see a lot more of in this time.
Overscored as well.
Yeah. But yeah, I think all together, not a bad list. There certainly wasn't that much filler released during the Dreamcast summer months of its kind of peak in 2000 and 2001. So yeah, I think we can count ourselves lucky, really. I'd also say that there wasn't, I mean, you're talking 22 game releases there over a 2-year summer period, so it's not like we were lavished with various different options, but yeah, certainly not terrible.
No, a good spread as well. I mean, there's some games, like Soldier of Fortune. For some reason, I always assumed that game was going to be absolute dog shit when I was looking at it. But once you get past the loading times, it's really good.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue with that, isn't it? Is the load-in times on that game. Unless you're playing on a solid state or something, it's
GDMU might fix that. Actually.
Yeah,
give it a go.
It's just the loading times are pretty horrendous otherwise. But yeah, so yeah, not a bad turnout for the Dreamcast, and yeah, I think it can hold its head high in the summer months, and it didn't produce too much shovelware, which is probably more than you can say about the state of the eShop and the PlayStation Network and Xbox Live these days, with half the games that come out anyway. All right. We are coming to the end of DreamPod 117, but seeing as I'm hosting again, I make the rules, and I always wanted to run somewhat of a quiz on the Dreamcast Junkyard DreamPod. So I'm a big fan of IGN's Game Scoop. For those who don't listen to Game Scoop, it is a great weekly podcast that covers the sort of contemporary games, game releases and whatnot. And they always finish with a game called 20 Questions, where basically readers send in a suggestion for a game and the panel of hosts have to try and guess the game within 20 questions. But the catch is they can only ask questions that will give the answer of yes or no. Normally they get the game right, and obviously for you, Mike and Loz, we know it's going to be a Dreamcast game, so you've already got a much smaller window to work with. So anything other than success here is going to be a embarrassing, frankly, for both yourselves and the Dreamcast Junkyard as a whole, as the authoritative voice on Dreamcast on the web. Okay. So no pressure here. No. So you know the rules. Yes or no questions. Go
Is
on.
there? Can I just check? Are there any other ground rules? Are these? Will it be PAL releases only, or worldwide? Or?
It could be any Dreamcast release. And just to widen the bucket a bit, I will include indie releases here as well. But we're talking if we're going to talk indie releases, it'd have to be a packaged physical release at some point. So yeah, think carefully about your questions. I will log your questions, and basically you get 19 questions, and then the last question needs to be a guess as to what your game is going to be. But if you do ask what game it is at any point and it's wrong, then you lose.
Okay. So
I've picked the game for the first one. But if we do have any suggestions from listeners for future episodes, please send them in, and we will see. We'll maybe select some of the users' ones. So I'll hand over to you guys now, and the pressure is very much on.
Well, I'm looking forward to a fair fight here, Mike. I think really you should, as the author of the A to Z, I think you really should have some kind of handicap here. Like, I don't know.
He's going to be flicking. He's going to be flicking through it now as he's asking the question.
Yeah. Just one last question before we get into it.
Yep.
Do we go back and forth? So I ask a question, then Mike, or can we do any of it?
However you guys want to do it. Entirely up to you.
Right, okay.
Back and forth sounds fair, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know, Mike. I think we're just gonna have to go for it here.
Okay,
So I'm gonna open up. I'm gonna say, was the game released during the Dreamcast commercial lifespan?
Yes.
Okay. Did the game get a PAL release?
Yes.
Okay.
Was the game a racer?
Yes.
Oh, he hasn't, has he? Oh, this is all. Okay. Is it a Sega published game?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I could jump straight in it, but I'm not going to.
It's going to be in it. It's got to be. It's got to be.
It's either that or it's a big bluff. Is the game based on a well-known license?
No.
Does the game have a particularly good representation of 1930s Tunisia?
No.
Oh. Okay.
Oh. You sure it was Tunisia?
I'm trying to think now. I'm trying to think where Tripoli was. It's two Tripolis. It's Libya or Lebanon. I think it's Libya, isn't it?
There is.
Oh, no.
There is.
Damn. Oh, no. Oh, the bluff could be working.
Was the racing game set in the future when it was published?
No.
I'm going to go one last attempt on that. So, was the game developed by a Welsh-based studio?
No.
Okay, cool. We just lost half our questions, just random bits.
Did the game have a online mode?
No.
Is the game published by Titus?
No. Right, you're halfway through. I'm going to read you what you've got so far. So it was released in the commercial lifespan of Dreamcast. It did have a PAL release. It's a racing game. It's not published by Sega. It is not based on a license. There is no representation of Tunisia. It is not set in the future, not developed by a Welsh-based studio, no online mode, and it's not published by Titus.
Did the game have a kudos system?
No.
Was the game released in 2001?
No.
Does the game feature off-road vehicles?
Yes.
Does the game have a 2-word title?
No.
Oh.
Does the game have a number in its title?
No.
Oh, no, this is going bad.
So he stalled at the 2-word. It's got a the or an and, I bet.
It's the off-road bit as well. I mean, does he mean it's actually like an off-road vehicle in the context of an actual 4-wheel off-road vehicle, or does he mean actually like a vehicle on the water?
That's 15 questions, guys. You've got 4 questions left and a guess.
Does the game feature any vehicles that are not cars?
No.
Oh dear.
Does the game have multiplayer?
Yes. 2 questions left, guys. Use them wisely.
Is the game The Rally 2?
Now, you've got 2 questions left. Are you sure you want to guess? Because if you get it wrong, then you don't get your 2 questions.
Don't tell me how to live.
I'm more letting Mike know before Mike lets you.
Are we co-op?
Yeah.
Oh, hell, right, okay.
We're working together. Oh,
yeah. What's this about? I mean, it's.
Do you want another recap of what we are so far?
Yeah, do it.
So release in commercial lifespan, PAL release, racing game, not Sega published, not Tidus published. We know it's not Spirit of Speed, not set in the future, no online mode, no kudos. It wasn't released, in 2001. Yes, it has off-road vehicles. No, there's no number in the title. It's not a 2-word title. No other vehicles other than cars. And yes, there is multiplayer.
Yeah, so it's not Buggy Heat.
No,
It's not a two-word.
and it's not Four Wheel Thunder. So
and it's not, and it can't be Sega Rally 2 because that's Sega published.
yeah. So what have we got, which is off-road?
All I can think of is V Rally. And it's all cars.
It's all cars. It's all cars.
I reckon James is trying to throw us off the scent.
I reckon he is, but I can't think of anything.
Four Wheel Thunder. Yeah, it wouldn't be F355 because that had an online mode.
It's not off-road, is it?
It's not Roadsters because that's Titus.
Exhibition of Speed, same. I think. What the sort of middling games are there? How many questions have you got left? 2 questions left.
2 questions left.
I hope people are like listening to this, shouting so loudly, because I'm sure they will be.
Can we phone a friend?
If you can get a friend on the phone, yeah.
Yeah, all my real life friends would know the answer to it.
And there's multiplayer. There's no online multiplayer. I mean,
what other question could we ask that would slim it down, Mike?
We could say it's an arcade game, I suppose, but...
Oh, yeah, did it have an arcade release? That'd help.
Do you want to ask that?
Yeah, it's it. Yeah.
No.
Damn. The only thing I can think of is something like Speed Devils, but, I mean, it doesn't fit.
But you've got one more question and then you guess. To avoid embarrassment by the masses of fans on Dreamcast.
It's going to be...
If it was Speed Devils, we could ask, did it have a online sequel? Because Speed Devils had an online version.
It could, but I don't know whether... I'm trying to think any other racing game at all is off-road on the... I'm sure I've got a half-written article on the blog for this as well.
Mike, I'd be amazed if you've not written a blog on this game at some point.
Did Sega GT have offline? Not offline, off-road?
I don't think so.
No, I think it was all track racing, wasn't it?
Might have done. I'm struggling to think of any off-road game at all. As I
reckon it's V Rally, mate.
Found the corner. You said V Rally. Did you guess V Rally? No, you didn't, did you? Isn't that a license though?
I don't know. Is it?
Mike's going through his shelf now.
He is. Yeah, just give us. We'll just be here another hour or so. Just hang on to this riveting listening.
I mean, worryingly, I've had a look for my shelves and I still can't see anything. So that's.
One more question, guys.
One more question
before you guess.
I mean, we could ask: is it? Is it a rally game?
I think it's got to be. It's got to be V Rally, hasn't it? Or it's got to be Speed Devils, but...
Well, let's ask the iffy question about whether it has a sequel, whether it had a sequel on the Dreamcast. Because if it's Speed Devils, then it did.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, James.
Hit me.
Break it to us. Did this game have a sequel on the Dreamcast?
No.
Right.
It's just one guess now, guys.
It's got to be V Rally, hasn't it?
It's V Rally. I mean, we're going to guess, but if it's wrong, it's your fault.
My fault or Mike's fault?
My fault.
Well, it can be your fault too.
I think it's got to be V Rally, hasn't it? It's got to be.
Do you want to do the honours?
Yes. So is it V Rally 2 Expert Edition?
It is not V Rally 2 Expert Edition.
Rats!
I can hear Tom laughing.
This
manically.
is a game released in 2000,
Right.
published and developed by Acclaim. Any joys yet, Mike? Up to 4-player multiplayer. features remote control cars.
Oh,
Oh shit! Revolt.
It is Revolt.
so it's one of my favourite games on Dreamcast. So.
Well done, guys, for not getting it. No, that was a poor show. But you know, first time. We'll give you a bit of slack. Maybe next time I host, I'm sure you'll nail it in 10 questions.
Well, edit that out. Edit out.
Get Lewis to edit it out when he edits all the gaps between your questions out anyway. Right, that just about wraps things up for us this time around on the DreamPod. Thank you, everyone, to listening. Thank you to Mike and to Loza for joining me and obviously failing miserably at the 20 questions. You can find us online, obviously, at the DC Junkyard on Twitter. And if you just search for the Dreamcast Junkyard on Facebook, you'll find us there, I'm sure. And obviously check out the blog on the dreamcastjunkyard.co.uk. Mike, where can we find you online?
Yep, so I'm not helping Lewis run the Twitter account. I do very little, to be fair. It's mostly Lewis. I am on Twitter at DreamcastPix. Which is the account I use for sharing lots of stuff about the guide and my general Dreamcast obsession.
Yeah, so if you want to feel jealous, follow Mike because he posts frequently of photos of his humongous collection. Loza, where can we find you?
I'm on the Twitters as well. I'm at lgoodchild_UK. So if you want to come and shame me for failing at 20 questions, then go ahead.
You can find me at AgileHarvey on Twitter, and that's where I do most of my rambling. And obviously, we are all in the Dreamcast Junkyard Discord as well. So grab the link from the website and join us to chat on there. And if you are on the Discord, let us know how many questions it took for you to get Revolt as the answer to today's 20 questions. That's it from us. Thank you for listening, and we will see you all on DreamPod episode 118.
This is the Dreamcast disc. 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 And is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers. Please stop this disc now.